So rediscovering the Zoom basics. If you have not used Zoom yet, if you started using Zoom in the fall, or even if you've been using it since March or before, Zoom keeps changing. So as more people are using Zoom in the world that we're in today, Zoom is making updates, security updates, feature updates. So it's constantly changing. So no matter how long you've been using Zoom, it's always nice to rediscover the basics because they're not always going to be the same. So today we're going to talk about scheduling, starting, and joining meetings, meeting audio, video, and content sharing, managing participants and basic security controls, chat and recording. If we have time at the end, I'll go over settings that you can adjust outside of a meeting. If we don't have time, we'll include an info sheet on that with the recording of this session. We do have a Beyond the Basics session tomorrow, as well as a session that will cover how to schedule your meetings, set them to record into Canvas, and find your recordings if they ever go missing, plus a full session about breakout rooms today at 2 p.m. and an Ask the Experts open Q&A, anything about Zoom on Thursday. So I'm going to share my screen with you. And you should now see the entire Zoom window screen, so you can see every control. So the first thing I want to show you is how to check for those updates. So Zoom, I mentioned, is constantly updating. So you should all have the Zoom desktop app on your computer. And if you click on your picture or your initials, if you don't have a picture on your profile, and then look for check for updates, it will tell you if you have an update available. Another important thing here, if you're ever curious about all of the things that Zoom is enhancing, you can visit their release notes. They update these regularly. There are often multiple releases in a week, and they'll tell you everything that has changed, everything that's coming. So we don't bombard you with every single update via email. So this is a good way for you to check that out yourself. So now I'm going to go into scheduling, starting, and joining meetings. Can you all see the Zoom login page? So if we log into our SMU Zoom, you will be taken to your meetings. You'll see any meeting that you currently have scheduled, and you have a button here or here that allows you to schedule a new meeting. Now you can also schedule meetings for class straight through Canvas, but we'll go into that tomorrow during the 9 a.m. session. So if we want to schedule a meeting, we give it a topic, a title. You can give it a description. You choose when it starts, and if it's a recurring meeting, this will be the first time it happens. So we'll say we have a meeting today at 10. Your duration, I will tell you a little tip. This duration is simply for your calendar or to alert your participants how long you think it will be. Zoom will never end your meeting before you click end. So if you set an hour and then you realize you're going long, don't worry, it'll continue. If this is a meeting that will meet more than once, recurring meeting, most of you probably are scheduling these for classes or office hours, so you will likely meet multiple days of the week or even just one day of the week. But here you would choose weekly and then select each day of the week that you meet, when you'll end, or the number of occurrences that you plan to have. You can also choose no fixed time if you want to have a meeting that's the same link every time, but you won't necessarily meet at the same time or on the same days. Typically, we're going with a weekly recurring meeting though. Registration we'll get into in the Beyond the Basics session. Security options. We recommend that you have at least a passcode or a waiting room on your meetings for security so that outside people don't jump in, people that aren't meant to be there. My suggestion is a passcode on your class meetings so that it's still one click to join for the students. They don't have to type in the passcode if you embed that in the link. And a waiting room for office hours. So you all, if you joined before 9 o'clock, were sent to the waiting room for this meeting. So that's what it looks like when you're in a waiting room. The reason I don't recommend this for class is because if you are lecturing and you're not really looking at the screen, you might not realize that someone is out there waiting, not getting your content. I do recommend it for office hours so that if you're talking one-on-one with a student, another student can't just jump right in and hear that. We'll get into the requiring authentication more in the advanced session, but this, you can set it so that they have to be signed into Zoom with an SMU email address to join. Video section, this is if your video or your participant's video starts immediately when they join the meeting. If you choose this to be off, when they join, their video will be off, but they have the option to turn it on. Audio, we always suggest both telephone and computer audio. You never know if you have a student whose computer or cell phone is broken and they have to dial in with a landline or dial in on their cell phone. Some other meeting options. Allow participants to join anytime means that they can join before you. If you have a waiting room on, they go directly to the waiting room. If you don't, they'll go directly into the meeting. This is typically fine, but if you have your meeting to automatically record, it's going to start recording the moment the first participant joins. So if you have it linked to Panopto and a student joins and then they realize, oh no, it's recording, I better leave, then you're gonna have a 30-second video that pops up onto Panopto. So you just have to decide what you wanna do with that. Mute participants upon entry, I always recommend unless it's a one-on-one meeting. This just starts everyone on mute so you don't hear their background noise and they can always unmute themselves if you allow. Breakout rooms we'll get into in another session. And now automatically record the meeting. Again, I mentioned this starts the recording as soon as anyone enters the meeting. You can choose on the local computer, but we recommend in the cloud, especially if it's for a class, since that will automatically be backed up onto Panopto. You can assign alternative hosts if you have a TA or you're co-teaching or you need someone to help you with the meeting. This allows them to start the meeting. They're already a host. They can launch and control the whole meeting if you happen to not be able to attend. This has to be an SMU email address. So once you save that meeting, you have all of your information here. You can copy just the link. Again, this is where that passcode is embedded into the link. You can view the whole invitation, which if it's a recurring meeting, will have all of the dates and times. The entire invitation, I think, is overkill if you're sending in an email because you have all of this information that a lot of people will never use. I typically copy and paste from here up and send that. Up to you though. So once I've saved the meeting, I can edit it if I need to, or I'm just done with that, and that is scheduling a meeting. So back on my Zoom app, once I have scheduled a meeting, it will show, I guess it hasn't. Well, it'll eventually show it as an upcoming meeting right here on my Zoom app. I can also see all of my scheduled meetings here and can click on any one and start it even if it's not time for it. Obviously, I can't start it right now because I'm already in another meeting. So now in the meeting, well, actually, let me pause. Are there any questions about scheduling a meeting, joining a meeting, or starting a meeting?
I have a question.
Okay.
It's actually from another instructor.
Okay.
With the students logging into Zoom, if one student logs in and then copy and paste the link to someone else, is there a way that the other person can then get into Zoom without logging in through the SMU student account?
If you have the require authentication, you have to be signed into Zoom. No, you have to be signed into Zoom. If you try to join and you're not signed in, like this is my photo that tells me I'm signed in, it won't let you.
Okay.
Okay, so now do you all see my entire Zoom screen so you can see my, okay. Okay, so we'll just go through the row. We're gonna start with audio. It's the most basic thing and it's the most important thing. You can talk to people, you can have a meeting, you can have class without them seeing your face and without them seeing your content. It's not ideal, but you can't do anything without them being able to hear you. So your microphone, you'll see when you speak, you can see the levels moving up and down. If you're muted, it has a line through it. Same thing for the students. They have the same features here. If you have multiple microphones or multiple speakers connected to your computer, this is how you can change it. So in the classrooms, you know, there's a little sign that tells you which one you should be connected to. Or if you put on your headphones and you have the microphone, this is how you can change that, microphone and speaker. If you're ever not sure which one sounds best or which one you need, this test speaker and microphone function is very helpful. It plays a sound and you say yes or no if you can hear it, and then it moves to the microphone, you speak, it plays it back for you. You can also leave computer audio completely. This also leaves your speaker. So this is not a way to mute yourself. This is a way, which we'll get into in Beyond the Basics. If you need multiple devices connected, you will only want to be on audio on one if they're in the same room. So if you ever accidentally connect audio, that's how you can leave. So some more advanced audio features. Here's where you can test just the speaker or just the microphone. This one here, automatically adjust microphone volume. Most of the classrooms are set to this. It kind of depends on how good your microphone quality is if you want to use this or not. But if you don't have this checked, I'd play around with it. This allows Zoom to check your levels. If you're talking quieter, it might turn it up. When you get loud, it'll turn it down. There's also an option to suppress background noise. I'm a Zoom believer. I trust in Zoom. If there's an auto option, I'm going to leave it on auto. So that is audio, and we'll get into video before we pause for questions. So video on, if I stop my video, if I have a photo on my Zoom profile, you will see that displayed. If I don't, you'll see my name. This is also where you can change your camera. If you have multiple cameras connected, you can select another one. You can choose a virtual background, which I am going to do right now because I typically have one and I just started without it, so I could show you how to turn it on. We'll get more into virtual backgrounds in the Beyond the Basics, but you can use Zoom default photos or upload your own like I have here. And SMU's Facebook page has a nice collection of these, which is where I got this one. So back to some video settings. So here you could change which camera. Mirroring your video is only for your view. So it doesn't really change what your participants see, and it doesn't change on the recording. But if you are writing something like on a board or on paper and holding it up, if it's mirrored, it's going to be backwards to you, and that would be confusing. So I leave mine unmirrored. Now touch up my appearance, you know what that does. You can see I have it on a little bit. You can turn it up even more, but it just kind of makes you a little blurry. So if you are writing, don't use that. Adjust for low light. I actually probably need, because my office is kind of dark. Again, you can choose auto or manually adjust your brightness. And this is a newer feature, and it's been useful in some of the classrooms that are a little bit darker. Always display participant names on their video. This, if you don't have this checked, those little names at the bottom of people's videos go away when you're not hovering your mouse over the screen. So if you have this always displayed, you'll always see their names. You can have it automatically turn off your video when you join a meeting, even if the meeting is set to have videos automatically on. And you can hide non-video participants, which means if it's just someone's name, I don't want that wasted space on my screen. I'd rather see the faces bigger. You can also see yourself as the active speaker while speaking. I don't like to do that. I'd prefer not to see myself at all. And you can choose how many participants are displayed per screen in gallery view. So you'll see we have quite a few people in here. If I chose only 25, everyone would be bigger, but I'd have more pages to scroll through. So I saw a question about how to add photos to virtual backgrounds. And again, we'll get more into this on the Beyond the Basics, but if you click the plus sign here, it allows you to upload a photo that's on your computer. Okay, are there any questions about audio and video? And am I going too fast, or is this good? The green screen we'll get into in the Beyond the Basics. With the recent updates to Zoom, you don't really need a green screen. Most people's computers work with virtual backgrounds. Some still won't, so I'm sorry if you're one of those and I just said that, but okay. So now I'm going to,
sorry, can you go back into the settings and see if you have the green screen option at the bottom of yours? I know I have it on my laptop. Some computers do, some don't.
I do. So you see how this just got weird? So you would never select that unless you actually have a green screen behind you, like a literal green screen. Okay. Are we good on that? And we'll move into content sharing. Okay. So right now I am sharing my screen and I have the selection enabled to show my Zoom windows. And that is just so you can see the actual buttons I'm clicking instead of me telling you, oh, there's a microphone icon in the bottom left. You probably would not want this in your classes, but for today, I have that on. So when I click share screen, you've all probably seen this before. I have the option for screen, which is my entire desktop. If you're in the classroom, this is fine. If you're at home, you might not want this, especially if you have text message notifications coming in, or you have your email open, or you have personal photos on your desktop that you don't care for your students to see. In that case, you can choose just the thing you want to show. So just this Safari, or just PowerPoint, or just a Word document. A new feature to Zoom is that you can choose multiple things at once. So if you know you're going to be switching between a browser and a PowerPoint, or a PowerPoint and something else, instead of stop share, start share, or new share, you can go ahead and select all of the things you want to show. Now, only things that are open on your computer are going to be options here, but anything that you have open on your computer, you can select, and you just hold down Control to select multiple windows. So that is a new feature, and I think it's wonderful. You also have the whiteboard option. I'm going to go ahead and share that, even though I'm not on a touch screen, so it's going to look not great. So if you don't have a touch screen and you're just writing with your mouse, unless you are very talented, it's going to look like this, and it'll take some time and you might get cramps in your hands. But this is the whiteboard feature. You can write text, you can draw, you can stamp, you can spotlight things. Here's my pointer. And you can change colors and all kinds of stuff. But we will get super deep into that in the Beyond the Basics when we talk about how you can connect an iPad. So I will actually stop that for now. So back to sharing my screen. So we went over the full screen, one application, multiple applications, and whiteboard. So if you are sharing a video or any kind of thing that has audio, you have to select share sound for the sound of your computer to go through the Zoom meeting. Now, some of it might pick up with your microphone, but it's not going to be great quality. If you select share sound, then you're sending out the sound as well as the image of your screen. If it is a video that's longer than a minute, I would also highly recommend choosing Optimize for Video Clip. Now that will remove your strip of students' faces if you're only on one screen, because it's using all of the bandwidth to send out that video clearer at a higher frame rate. So that is if you're sharing a video or sound. Now there's one more content sharing that I want to go over with you. And even though it's on the advanced tab, I want to include it in the basics session because it is in a lot of classrooms, and that is content from a second camera. So I just went to share screen, I go to the advanced tab, and I'm choosing content from a second camera. Clicking share, and now I have a document camera connected to my computer. So here's my document camera pointed at a piece of paper, and I can write and you can see it. Another way you could use content from a second camera is if you had a second camera connected, maybe that's pointed at your students or pointed at something else. You can share that content so that you have two cameras going at once. It does, as you notice, take over the screen share. So you cannot share the screen and share content from a second camera at the same time. So if I wanted to share the screen and I wanted to share a document camera, I could change my camera to, well, I'd have to turn off my virtual background, but I could change my camera to the document camera so that you'd see both at the same time, screen share and document camera. Okay, so that was a lot. Do we have any questions on sharing content?
No questions at this time.
Okay. So next is managing participants. And we have a session about working with engaging your students and classroom management. That is not what I'm going to talk about here. I'm going to talk about managing them in Zoom. So you have your participants section here, which pulls up a list of everyone in your meeting. Can you all see that? Okay. So every participant you see
you.
Sorry?
I currently see you.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so you have your participants list here. When you open this, you can also pop this out to be its own window if you need to move it to the side. Let me see if I can pop this back in. Okay. So you have a list of all your participants. You can see if they're connected with a microphone or a camera, if they're muted, if they have their camera on, etc. You can mute or unmute people, and you can ask them to start their video if their video is not on. This does not start their video. It sends them a notice that says, Faye has asked you to start your video. You can allow them to record if you want them to be able to record the meeting to their local computer. You can send them to the waiting room. You can remove them completely, and you can report them. You can also make them a co-host, but I think that that feature is not on here because of the way we set this meeting up, but you can make them a co-host so that they can take control of everything. You have the button at the bottom here to mute everyone. If you don't know who's making the noise, or you just have people that keep unmuting, you can mute everyone. Let's look at that in a different spot. So on this security tab, you have some more features for managing your participants. You can lock your meeting, which means no one else can enter. It's done. You can turn on and off the waiting room, even if you didn't set it in the settings before. So we had the waiting room on when this meeting started, but we unchecked enable waiting room here so that everyone that entered after 9 could just get right in. You can hide people's profile pictures if you think that that might make people uncomfortable to see each other. And you can set what participants are able to do. So right now you cannot share your screen. You can chat. You could rename yourself. You cannot unmute yourself. So if you have a portion of class, maybe you're giving a test on Zoom and you don't want people to be able to interrupt, you can make it so that you cannot unmute yourself as a participant. I have allowed you to start video, but I could make it so that you don't have video either. And you're currently allowed to annotate on shared content, but please don't. You can also remove a single participant, or you can suspend participant activities, which means everyone is paused. Everyone's video is off. No one can mute. No one can chat. No one can do anything. That would typically happen if you had a Zoom bombing case and you just need to stop everything. We haven't seen a lot of those since the beginning, but they do still happen. So that's how you can control this. Another thing that's important on the participant list, if you click invite, you will see your meeting ID and your passcode at the bottom. So if you ever have someone that says, I can't get in, what's the meeting ID? That's a quick way once you're in the meeting to find it. Participants, invite, there it is. You can copy the link and send it to them, or copy the entire invitation. So that is managing participants. Do we have questions on this?
Yes. So in the participants list, why are some people marked as guest?
So anyone marked as guest means they are not signed in through SMU's SSO single sign-on. That actually might be something we should chat about. So if this kicks me out of the meeting, I promise I'll join back, but I don't think it will. Okay, so I'm signed out of my Zoom. If you enter your email address and your password here, it's not going to sign you into your SMU account. You have to choose sign in with SSO. The company domain is SMU, and then it takes you to, I'm going to cancel because I'm already in the Zoom meeting, but it takes you to the Zoom website where you enter your SMU ID and password. If you are not signed in at all, you also will show up as a guest.
Okay. How do you broadcast the side-by-side so that you have the class showing on one side and the screen share on the other side?
So you can only, well, okay. Let me see if we can do that. Let me share something that's not my. Okay, so this, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you this because of the way I'm sharing. You can see my whole screen now, right? My whole
Yes.
desktop?
Your desktop, yes.
Okay, so do you see these faces here?
No faces.
Okay, so I don't think I'll be able to show you this, but if you're only using one screen, when you share your screen, you know, you just have that little row of 6 people. There is now a grid view. It's another option on that bar. It's 9 little squares. If you click that, you see more than 6 people, and you can resize it so that it gets larger. So do you only see my desktop? You don't see the Zoom?
No, just the desktop.
Okay. Well, now I see 20 of you, and I could make it even larger. Hopefully this, if this doesn't show on the recording, we'll include a worksheet about how to do it. Okay, so let me get back to sharing my.
You get one more question in.
Okay.
How do you record for attendance?
Okay, I will show you that. Okay, now do we see my Zoom?
Desktop?
Okay. It's also very important to ask people what they can see. So I'm going to share with you, I'm going to go back to the give me just a second. Okay, do you see my Zoom window? Like my Zoom profile?
Yes.
Okay. So since I'm an admin, mine looks a little different. So I can't really show you this, but you have a button here that says reports. When you click on reports, you'll then click on usage. Mine looks a little different, but I'm going to get there. So you just click reports and then usage. And then you'll see your recent meetings in a list like this. If you need to change your date range, you do it here. Okay, sorry. Okay, here we go. Again, yours looks different. Yours looks like, okay, sorry about this. Actually, I'm just going to tell you, so I don't want to pull up other people's information. So, so I'll just tell you, you log into your Zoom website, you click reports and then usage, and you'll see a list of your recent meetings. You can change the date range if you need to. Each number of participants in each meeting is a hyperlink. You click on that, it opens a pop-up window, and it has everyone's name that joined the meeting, what time they entered, what time they exited. You can click a checkbox for show unique users, which means if Faye entered at 8:50 and then left at 8:55, but then entered again at 9 and left at X time, it'll combine that into one row. You can export this as a CSV file. And I'm sorry that I can't show it to you, but my view just looks different as an admin. Okay. So that is, and we do have a handout on this, and I can share that.
Does the security icon show only for the host?
Yes. Yes. The security icon shows only for the host. And you now just see my desktop, right?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know how.
We have 10 minutes left.
Okay, okay. So yes, the security icon shows only for the host. And actually, give me just 1 second. I figured out why you weren't seeing what I wanted you to see. Now do you see all of my Zoom windows?
Yes.
Okay, it's because I signed out of the meeting. So, or I signed out of my SMU Zoom. So showing you that caused a little confusion on my part. So don't sign out in the middle of a meeting and you'll be okay. Okay, so we went over security. So the last thing I really have is chat. So let's get into that before we run out of time. So you've all seen chat. I'm sure you're using it right now. You can see all of your chat messages in one spot, whether it's to everyone or a private message that was just to you. If it was just to you, it'll say direct message here. You can message everyone in the meeting, or you can choose an individual to private message. Your participants can do what you allow them to do. You can set this setting as default, or you can change it in the meeting. So if I click on these 3 dots on more, I get to choose who participants can chat with. If they can chat with everyone publicly and directly, they can send a message to everyone, or they can private message each other. If they can chat with everyone publicly, all of their messages go to everyone. Host only means they can only send messages to the hosts or co-hosts of the meeting. And if you say no one, they can chat with no one at all. Chat is disabled. They click on chat and it says chat is disabled. If you send a private message to someone else, it is not in the recording of the chat that I have. So my saved chat as the host at the end is only things that were visible to me in the meeting. So if you allow your students to private message each other, you will never know what they say, which is probably a good thing. And chat is also where you can send files. So you can send a file to the class for them to download from your computer, from Box, from Google Drive, and they can also send files. I would not necessarily recommend having students submit assignments this way, but if you have them working on something, you send them a file and then send them to breakout rooms, or someone says, hey, I can't access the PowerPoint on Canvas. Can you send it to me now? This is an easy way to do that in the Zoom meeting instead of having to email later. Okay, so there are some settings that are important for everything I've talked about today, but we don't really have time for that and still answer questions. So I'm going to release a best practices for set these settings if you want to do this or that. And it will be available along with the recording of this meeting, which will be no later than Monday of next week. So now if there are any lingering questions I did not answer or any new questions,
Sure.
we can do that for the next 5 minutes.
Do students have the same training for the Zoom?
I don't think so. I don't know. But I will show you. So if you go to the Zoom website, they have, and you can see this, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if you go to the Zoom website and then go to support in the top right, they have so much information. They have videos on everything you could think of, articles on everything you could think of. And students typically, in my experience, Google questions when they have problems instead of attending things like this.
Do we have to do anything specific with the second camera in Zoom when using D10?
No. So the D10 is a totally separate device. And we do have a session on the D10. I'm not sure when it is. Hopefully some of you have registered for that if you're teaching in a class that uses it. And your ATSD will also meet you in the classroom if you're teaching in a class and you need that training. It is a totally separate device. It's like a second computer. So you do not have to do anything with the second camera in that case.
Do private messages in the chat show up when you save the chat after the meeting? I heard that they did.
If they are to you, yes. If they are private messages to other people that do not involve you, no. And at this
Penny
time,
asks, where will the written be located?
So once we have the recordings ready on the same website where you registered, you'll see, instead of register, you'll see a button that says view recording and a button that says view resources. And that will take you to probably a box file that's going to have written information about everything that we talk about this week.
Okay, I think those are the questions that we have.
All right. Well, thank you all, and I hope you attend some of the other sessions. They're all going to be great. And, let your ATSD know if you have any specific questions or you need a one-on-one training. They're happy to do that. I am happy to do that. That is what we're here for.